Hello and welcome to News Central Studios. I'm Felicity Eziwike. Here are the stories making headlines beyond the continent. We'll begin in the Middle East. Iran Foreign Ministry says it will not deploy forces to Lebanon or Gaza to confront Israel as Israeli strikes target its allies in the region. According to the Foreign Ministry spokesman, Nasser Kanani, Lebanon and Palestine have the capability and strength to defend themselves against what he termed aggression. Israel has in recent days been mounting heavy airstrikes in Lebanon against the so-called Axis of Resistance, a network of Iran-allied militant groups in the region, including in Syria, Yemen, and Iraq.
و کشورها و ملت‌های منطقه از جمله در لبنان و در فلسطین از توانایی و اقتدار لازم برای دفاع از خود در مقابل تجاوزگری رژیم غاصب صهیونیستی برخوردار هستند و نیازی به اعزام نیروهای کمکی یا داوطلب جمهوری اسلامی ایران نیست. درخواستی هم در این زمینه ما از هیچ طرفی نداشتیم، بلکه بالعکس ما اطلاع داریم و اطمینان داریم که آنها نیاز به کمک‌های انسانی ما از این دست ندارد. هیچ یک از اقدامات تجاوزکارانه رژیم غاصب صهیونیستی در ارتباط با اهداف مرتبط با جمهوری اسلامی ایران رو بدون پاسخ نخواهد گذاشت و رژیم غاصب صهیونیستی برای جنایاتی که در حق ملت ایران، در حق محور مقاومت و در حق اتباع و شهروندان و نظامیان ایرانی مرتکب شده بدون توبیخ و بدون در واقع تنبیه حتما عرض به خدمت شما که نخواهد.
Meanwhile, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken says the world is safer following the killing of Hezbollah leader Hassan Nasrallah by Israel, calling him a brutal terrorist. Speaking in Washington during a meeting of the coalition fighting the Islamic State, Blinken said Nasrallah's leadership of Hezbollah had terrorized the region and hindered Lebanon's progress as a nation. Despite the military action, Blinken said diplomacy remains the Middle East's best path to stability, reaffirming U.S. efforts to secure a ceasefire and negotiate hostage release in Gaza.
Was a brutal terrorist whose many victims included Americans, Israelis, civilians in Lebanon, civilians in Syria, and many others as well. During his leadership of Hezbollah, the group terrorized people across the region and prevented Lebanon from fully moving forward as a country. Lebanon, the region, the world are safer without him. Likewise, we'll continue working to secure a ceasefire deal in Gaza that brings the hostages home, eases the suffering of people in Gaza, preserves the possibility of a more lasting, secure peace for the entire region. Diplomacy remains the best and only path to achieving greater stability in the Middle East. The United States remains committed to urgently driving these efforts forward.
Let's also tell you that United States President Joe Biden has reiterated the urgent need for a ceasefire in the Middle East. Biden's comments came in response to a question about whether he was aware of Israeli plans for a limited ground operation in Lebanon and if he supported such an action.
I'm more aware than you might know, and I'm comfortable with them stopping. We should have a ceasefire now. Thank you.
Do you expect Iran to retaliate?
Still on the conflict, French Foreign Minister calls on Israel and Hezbollah to agree to truce put forward at the United Nations, urging Israel not to send ground troops into Lebanon. Last week, Paris and Washington, joined by Arab, Western and European countries, called Israel and Hezbollah to agree on immediate 21-day ceasefire and to give diplomacy a chance. Israel ignored the request, increasing its strike on Lebanon's south, east and Beirut's southern suburbs, and on Friday killing Hezbollah leader Hassan Nasrallah. Since mid-September, Israeli strikes across Lebanon have killed more than 1,000 people.
Je suis venu poursuivre les efforts diplomatiques initiés depuis un an et qui se sont accélérés il y a quelques jours à New York avec la proposition de cessez-le-feu mise sur la table par le président de la République et le président Biden, que j'exhorte les parties à saisir dès maintenant. Elle est toujours sur la table. Il reste un espoir.
Israel's long contentious relationship with the United Nations has since October 7 spiraled into new depths amid insults and accusations, and even a questioning of the country's continued UN membership. Addressing the UN General Assembly on Friday, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu accused the world body of treating his country unfairly. The past year has seen repeated accusations from within the UN system that Israel is committing genocide in its war in Gaza, while Israeli officials have made charges of bias and have even accused the UN chief of being an accomplice to terror. Temperatures have risen further in recent days amid Israel's escalating strikes on Hezbollah in Lebanon.
Deserve to continue to go unpunished for its relentless attacks on the United Nations? Should there be a consideration of its membership as part of this organization, which Israel seems to have zero respect for?
The day after the Hamas attacked Israel, the Hezbollah attacked Israel. The Hezbollah, being the proxy of Iran in Lebanon, attacked Israel daily from the 8th of October until today. And now, today, a few hours ago, the Office of the High Commissioner of Human Rights comes out and blasts Israel for reacting. Where was the OHCHR for the last 11 months, when 70,000 Israelis were not able to return to their homes?
For more on the situation in the Middle East, I'm joined by our Chief International Correspondent, Afua Hagan. Afua, tell us what's the latest from Lebanon.
Well, in the past couple of hours, we have been hearing that Israel has notified the United States that it is going to launch a limited ground incursion into Lebanon. That's according to U.S. officials. Now, the operation could start as soon as this evening. We're seeing on the ground that Israel has declared its northern border with Lebanon as a closed military zone, and Lebanese troops have pulled back from their positions on the border amid growing speculation of that ground incursion. Now, the Israeli Defense Minister earlier on today implied that their troops were ready to go into the country if needed by air, land and sea, and it appears that is happening now. Now, Hezbollah's deputy leader said earlier on today that they were ready for this Israeli ground offensive, and that's just days, of course, after Israel killed the Hezbollah leader Hassan Nasrallah in Beirut. We saw Joe Biden earlier on today talking at that press conference where he has reiterated that a ceasefire is needed now, but it seems it's not coming in the next few hours, and what is coming is a ground incursion into Lebanon.
Is there any indication who could lead Hezbollah after the killing of Nasrallah?
Yeah, the killing of Hassan Nasrallah has been another huge blow to Hezbollah, who have lost quite a few of their number over the past couple of weeks, whether that's in the pager attacks, in the walkie-talkie attacks, or in the targeted air attacks that have happened over the past week as well. Lebanese media outlets have been speculating over this over the past 72 hours. Hassim Safiuddin is a name that keeps coming up. He is one of Nasrallah's maternal cousins, and this is described as actually more hardline than Hassan Nasrallah. So we could see Hezbollah going down an even more hardline road than they are on at the moment, perhaps more igniting that ring of fire that Israel has talked about with Iran's proxies in the region, Hezbollah, the Palestinian Liberation Front. The proxies in the region taking a more hardline approach. Now, the party is still quite quiet about that, probably because the numbers have been depleted quite significantly over the past week or so. At the moment, Sheikh Nin Kassim has taken over temporary assumed leadership. He did give a speech earlier on today, and that's when he said that the group would choose a successor as soon as possible. And where that successor will come from remains to be seen. As I said, there are a few names in the ring, but there's also deputies and reserves on the bench, if you will, also, because like I said, Hezbollah's numbers have been quite depleted over the past few weeks.
What could we see Iran do next in this conflict?
Well, Iran have said earlier on today that they want, they've kind of conflicted themselves. So they said that there will be some sort of revenge for Nasrallah's death. But they also said that they don't want, or they've implied that they don't want to be dragged into a war in the region. Like I said, Israel's talked about that ring of fire at Hezbollah and their proxies in the region. But Israel, bolstered as it is by arms from the US, from the UK, and the US Navy reinforcing Israel in the Mediterranean, Israel's in the mood to do much more damage to its enemies and to reshape the Middle East, as it were. You know, Israel, the Israeli Prime Minister said to Iranian people directly earlier on, there's nowhere that we cannot reach in the Middle East. And they want to draw Iran into this conflict, but that's not something that Iran want to get into at the moment. There's no rules to where we are now at this stage, where we seem to be heading towards, or we are in, wider conflicts across the region. So what Iran does over the next few days and weeks will be significant and will be important, whether they join in with Israel in the ramping up of the conflict or not, or whether their proxies do it on their behalf.
I'm sure we'll be circling back to you for further analysis. Thank you very much for the update. We're on a short break now. When the news return, we will bring you update on the devastating Hurricane Helene in the United States and many more stories. Thank you for staying with us. The news continues in America, where the only scheduled debate between the vice presidential nominees on Tuesday night, 5 weeks before Election Day, may also serve as the final word for the campaigns of Vice President Kamala Harris and former President Donald Trump before a large audience on national television. Ahead of the debate, Trump continues his personal attacks on his rival Harris, much to the displeasure of both campaigns. Afua Hagan has more.
Donald Trump on Sunday repeated his personal insults about Vice President Kamala Harris's mental state, as some GOP allies urged him to stay on message and avoid such attacks after he made similar remarks at a rally the night before. The president said Joe Biden became mentally impaired. It's sad, but lying Kamala Harris, honestly, I believe she was born that way. He said this in Erie, Pennsylvania, reprising attacks from the night before in Wisconsin, where he said Kamala is mentally impaired. Blaming Harris for illegal immigration taking place under the Biden administration, Trump went on to say, if you think about it, only a mentally disabled person could have allowed this to happen to our country. By Sunday morning, some Republicans said the former president should stick to the issues, a plea they have made repeatedly during his third presidential run.
But this is a people power campaign.
In response to the comments, the Harris campaign said, Donald Trump is finally telling the truth to voters. He's got nothing inspiring to offer the American people, just darkness. As the candidates at the top of the tickets trade barbs, their vice presidential candidates are gearing up for their first debate taking place tomorrow evening on CBS. Minnesota Governor Tim Walz and Ohio Senator J.D. Vance's selections over the summer thrust them into an intense political spotlight. A few months ago, Walz was a little-known Democratic governor and a former six-term congressman who emerged as an unexpected contender as Harris's running mate. When Trump announced Vance as his pick at the Republican National Convention in July, the first-term senator had just turned 40, and he served less than 2 years in elected office. The Walz-Vance matchup may be the last debate of the 2024 election, unprecedented in modern presidential campaigns. Neither has debated as a running mate's number 2, so this debate is a new test for both Walls and Vance as they defend their tickets' platforms. For News Central, I'm Afua Hagan.
In the meantime, Ryan Routh, the 58-year-old man accused of plotting to kill Republican presidential candidate Donald Trump at his Florida golf course, has pleaded not guilty on Monday to several federal charges. His lawyer entered not guilty plea during a brief arraignment in a West Palm Beach federal courthouse and requested a jury trial. Routh was arrested on September 15 after a Secret Service agent saw the barrel of a rifle poking out from bush on the perimeter of the West Palm Beach golf course where Trump was playing around. The agent opened fire and Routh, who fled in a vehicle, was arrested shortly after. He has been charged with attempted assassination of a major presidential candidate, assaulting a federal officer, and firearms offenses. Still in the U.S., the death toll from Hurricane Helene, which unleashed devastating floods across the southeastern United States, has now climbed to at least 100. The numbers are expected to rise as emergency responders intensify search and rescue operations in the worst affected areas, particularly in western North Carolina, where entire neighborhoods have been wiped out and communication lines remain down. With mobile phone towers knocked out across the region, hundreds of residents remain unaccounted for, unable to reach loved ones or emergency services. Initial damage estimates range from $15 billion to over $100 billion, though the full scope of destruction, both in terms of property and economic losses, will become clearer as officials continue their assessment. Meanwhile, U.S. President Joe Biden has pledged help for the hurricane-impacted communities.
I'm here to tell every single survivor in these impacted areas that we will be there with you as long as it takes. For the sake of yourselves, and your families, I urge everyone returning to their communities and home to listen to the local officials and follow all safety instructions.
Let's head on now to Europe, where a devastating forest fire in central Greece has claimed the lives of 2 men who were assisting firefighters. Their charred bodies were discovered near the village of Ellinikon. Deputy Governor of Corinth confirmed the tragic incident, describing it as a heartbreaking accident. The fire, which broke out on Sunday, spread rapidly, fueled by strong winds. Several villages were forced to evacuate as the blaze raged on. Numerous regions across Greece were placed on high alert, with an orange fire warning issued on Sunday and Monday as winds reached speeds of 50 to 75 kilometers per hour, making the situation even more perilous.
Η κατάσταση είναι ακόμα επικίνδυνη. Τώρα, τι θα γίνει θα δούμε μέχρι το βράδυ. Δεν έχουμε ακόμα αποφύγει τον κίνδυνο. Η φωτιά ήρθε στα σπίτια μας.
Η κατάσταση είναι επικίνδυνη. Είναι πολύ επικίνδυνη γιατί γίνονται αναζωπυρώσεις. Το ζητούμενο είναι ότι δεν έχουμε ζήσει. Εγώ τουλάχιστον έχει 25 χρόνια πριν πέρασε η φωτιά πάλι. Είναι πολύ τρομακτική βέβαια και κινδυνεύει.
Russian President Vladimir Putin on Monday vowed that Moscow would accomplish all goals it has set for itself in Ukraine in its 3rd year of conflict. Putin made this known in a video message released to mark the 2nd anniversary of what Russia calls Reunification Day, when Moscow annexed 4 Ukrainian regions. He also slammed Western elites, who he said turned Ukraine into their colony, a military base aimed at Russia, and who found radical nationalism to everything Russian.
В невыносимых условиях постоянных обстрелов, блокады, долгих 8 лет жил Донбасс. Каким притеснением подвергались жители Новороссии. Они выступили против вооруженного государственного переворота в Киеве. Дали отпор неонацистской диктатуре, которая хотела навсегда оторвать их от исторической родины, от России, которые за это время превратили Украину в свою колонию, в военный плацдарм, нацеленный на Россию. Они планомерно насаждали ненависть и радикальный национализм, разжигали вражду ко всему русскому, поставляли оружие, направляли наемников и советников, готовили украинскую армию к новой войне. Сегодня все вместе мы отстаиваем безопасное, благополучное будущее для наших детей и внуков. Нашу общую судьбу, память о достижениях и победах великих предков. Верность их традициям и заветам.
In Asia, search and rescue teams in Nepal's capital picked through wrecked homes on Monday after waters receded from monsoon floods that has killed at least 209 people around the Himalayan Republic. More than 400 people were rescued from various districts on Monday, with another 29 still missing. Deadly floods and landslides are common across South Asia during the monsoon season from June to September, but experts say climate change is making them worse. Entire neighborhoods in Kathmandu were inundated after the heaviest rains in more than 2 decades, with the capital temporarily cut off from the rest of Nepal after landslides blocked highways.
खबर आइसके पछाडि राति नै म यहाँ आएँ आएर चाहिँ के गर्न सकिन्छ कि भनेर यसो हेर्दाखेरि चाहिँ गर्न सक्ने अवस्था त केही थिएन तैपनि अब यो 2-4 जना साथीहरूलाई चाहिँ बोलाएर के हुन्छ कि भनेर हेर्दाखेरि म आफैले पनि बगायो
एउटा एकदम एक्सट्रिम इभेन्ट हो मैले अघि भने जस्तै अब हामीसँग भएको तथ्याङ्कको अवधि मौसमी तथ्याङ्कको अवधिमा काठमाडौँमा कमसेकम पनि यो रेकर्ड रेनफल भएको हुनाले यसमा र यो जुन समयमा भएको छ नि यसबाट चाहिँ केही हदसम्म जलवायु परिवर्तनको चाहिँ भूमिका हुन सक्ने सम्भावना चाहिँ म देख्छु तर त्यो मात्रै होइन कि यो अरु संरचनाहरूको पनि यसमा
And that's the latest from beyond the continent. Do send your eyewitness report to the number showing now on your screen, or you can follow us on social media to do so at News Central TV. You can watch News Central live on DSTV channel 422, Star Times channel 274, Avo TV and on YouTube. As always, thanks for watching.